Good morning. I'm so impressed with this crowd. A little intimidated. And I love the pictures and the photographs. Um, my charge this morning was to talk within 5 minutes, which is a little difficult at times for me, but I'll try my best, to talk about my journey as a primary care physician into a situation like this where there's trauma and a lot of acute injuries. Process began for me to be interested in developing world diseases, and in about 1990, and I got interested in, for example, the Cambodian landmine problem, and actually worked with a group of Vietnam vets for a number of years on prosthetic limbs, because Cambodia was the most mined country in the world at the time, and we were trying to get limbs for pediatric patients. I'd also worked in Mother Teresa's for a few days, Calicut Temple in Calcutta with my wife. But the real inspiration came to me around 2003. My cousins from Northwest Illinois asked me to come aboard in Haiti, in the Central Plateau region, in their small clinic they were building. My cousins are carpenters and teachers. And from 2001 to 2006, they built this clinic. It's a 3,000 square foot clinic that's got solar panels, a generator, and as well as intermittent electricity. So intermittent is the word. So I came aboard in 2003, and actually before the building was open, was working in a church. And I became fairly frustrated at the time because you deworm kids, they would come back a month or two later, and they still have parasites. So the struggle for us was to start programs that were more long-term. And the key that developed out of this was around 2006, as we put the roof on the clinic with buckets of concrete. We finally hired physicians in the area who started the programs, and nurses and medical records people who started to run the preventative health care programs and treat and manage things in the area. We call ourselves, the clinic is called Mount Carroll de Wampa, Clinic Mount Carroll de Wampa. It's 5 miles from Los Cabos, 40 miles northeast of Port-au-Prince. We've now been running since 2006. Our clinic sees between 150 and 300 people a week rather, and it's a Haitian-driven organization. Haitian physician and the board for the group called Hope H that I'm part of, which is Haitian Organization Program for Education and Health, is all Haitian except for me. And I have to admit, my Creole is lousy. My wife is getting far better. My wife caught the bug about 2006, as we call it, the Haitian bug, and since then has gone down and is diligently working on her Creole to work with immigrant populations in Boston. The evening of the earthquake, I spoke with Marlene Olivier, who's a Haitian American, who's the director of our program. We both decided that we are not first responders. We call ourselves second wave first responders. So what we decided to do was, we weren't going to be able to go through Port-au-Prince because we weren't first responders, and we didn't want to step on first responders' toes. So we decided to go through Santo Domingo, which is an 8-hour drive from the city to where we're at. We bought pharmaceutical and food because we were anticipating, and this is one thing that I'm still a little disturbed with the press, is they're not really documenting what's going on in the countryside. People are still very focused on Port-au-Prince. But what's happening in the countryside right now is people that have very little food and are starving themselves are now having relatives come to live with them. And that's a challenge, a huge challenge for them, because it's stressing systems out in the rural areas, plus the fact that 50% of Haiti's food is imported, and Port-au-Prince port is not functioning, that I heard, except recently I think part of it has opened. Gary, do you know anything about that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so it's concerning because food comes up the mountain as well, so there's less and less food. So part of the thing that we did was to bring some food to put a little Band-Aid on it, and we continue to. My wife leaves tomorrow at 5:30 with my youngest daughter, because this has become a family affair for us. All our children, we have 2 daughters, go with us every time we go. We go 3 times a year, and this is my 14th or 15th trip since 2003. So what we decided as our missions were threefold. One, we were going to check the clinic to make sure it wasn't damaged and to bring food and supplies. Two, we were going to check on our students that were at the university and see if they had survived. And three, we were going to do some contribution to the in Port-au-Prince by taking some refugees up the mountain that are vulnerable populations, pregnant women, young children, elderly, and people that were sick. So we all arrived in Santo Domingo about 96 hours after this occurred. And then we had trouble getting across the border for a time period. We finally got through, and we delivered our first care at about 121 hours. We went down to Port-au-Prince, and we picked up 100 refugees and 13, as I say, unaccompanied children, because we really don't know if they're orphans. But they were all malnourished. We brought them up the mountain. And we are feeding and clothing them right now, and we're going to be kicked out of the school soon since the schools are opening, and we're going to be building a makeshift shelter for them and a makeshift school for the children as well. That begins, like I said, my wife is going tomorrow as well. As far as what the future holds, we don't know. Our goal is to continue to build a school, a dental clinic as well, and to continue to maintain the medications. I do appreciate the help from Partners in Health. I jokingly call us the CVS Minute Clinic of Partners in Health. We do the more minor things, quote unquote, malaria, typhoid fever, pneumonias, whereas we send TB and HIV over to Los Cabos to Partners in Health there. We think we've been pretty successful, and our mission this time we thought was very successful. We were fortunate to find out that all our students survived. One had the building collapse upon him, 2/3 of his class was killed, and he crawled out of the wreckage. He came up the mountain, and I asked him if he was willing to go down with us to Port-au-Prince to help with the people there. Not in a heartbeat, he said yes. And thank God, because he's a wonderful person. He was great at translating for us as we walked through tent cities and asked people if they wanted to go up with us. And it wasn't really tents, it was more like bed linens for what we saw. I'm going to part with a couple of thoughts for you. I also grew up in New Orleans. Katrina flooded my own home, so I feel some common bond as well with the Haitian people. Mardi Gras is next week, Tuesday. Many of you may not know that. But in Jacmel and in New Orleans, they will celebrate. And Jacmel will celebrate despite the destruction they've had. So think about the human spirit on that day and what people have done and what they will continue to do. Because New Orleans is rising back and Haiti will rise again. And I feel very, very confident in that. And I'll leave you with one thing. Gandhi, a quote from Gandhi, "Joy lies in the fight, the attempt, the suffering involved, not the victory." And the suffering is my own suffering, not the suffering of the people around me. Thank you.